Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. You're watching Rob and Craig Live here on the Mingle Media Television Network, and I am broadcasting from Houston, where we are having so many wildfires. I know you guys are watching the news across the nation. Thousands upon thousands of acres have perished, and a huge number of people, I think I heard maybe 74 today, homes were destroyed, meaning most people lost everything they owned except for what they could stick into their cars when they were evacuated. So when you're saying your prayers this week, please pray for Texas, and please pray for our very brave firefighters. They are working around the clock and they're doing an excellent job. Now tonight I've got a really great show for you. I'm really excited. I'll be speaking in moments with Catherine Cabanis, who is the Executive Director of Crime Stoppers here in Houston. She is amazing. She's got a fabulous resume and she is a wealth of information, so you want to stick around for that. But first, it's time for the Critter Update. Now, I guess it was last Saturday morning, I started thinking, I may not have much of a critter update. It's been really quiet around here, and actually that's kind of a gift. Well, I have a new neighbor that's moving in, and he put a dumpster out front because he's just throwing away and just literally gutting the house and starting over. And he made the mistake of saying, "Robin, if you have something you'd like to throw away, feel free to put it in my dumpster." Well, I told a friend of mine, I've got this storehouse that's attached to the side of my garage. It's just like sky high, packed full of stuff, and I haven't done anything with it. And most of it is stuff that my husband put in there, and he died 6 years ago. And when we had Hurricane Ike in 2008, I was stuffing everything I could find, trying to get rid of all the projectiles in my yard. And after that, I never even tried to get it back out because I thought, well, if we have another storm, I'll have to do it again. I just left everything in there. So a sweet friend came over Saturday evening, and we started just throwing stuff away. And thankfully, because it's been so long, I knew there was nothing in there that was critical. So I'm thinking, just don't even look in the boxes. Just throw the stuff out of here. Well, we were sweating. It was just like torturesome. And I was throwing away stuff, and then I have one of those dustpans. It's got a stick on it, and you hold it and sweep into it from a standing position. And I'm sweeping away, and all of a sudden I kind of hit something. I thought, what is that? Well, it was not just a rat. It wasn't just a dead rat. It was a decayed rat. Oh, I couldn't believe it. I was so grossed out. I was really grateful that I found him toward the end of the project, because that really grossed me out. I did scream and I did kind of jump for a moment. So anyway, it was empowering. I can now add decayed rat to my long list of critters that like to hang out with me. So that's the end of the critter update. Now last week we had a great show. We were honoring the survivors of 9/11. We were talking about the 10th anniversary, and I said that the 10th person to email me on my website, robincraigdirect.com, would win not one bag, not two bags, not three bags, but a case of Bean Eatos. They are the best chips in the world. I call them guilt-free chips because they don't have any corn. They are gluten-free, they've got protein, they've got omega-3s, and they are so good. So our winner from last week is Shannon Bell in Indiana. Yay! Congratulations, Shannon. I'm glad she won because she's got two adorable kids and her mom lives with her since she became widowed. And Shannon, you're going to be getting a case of Benitos. Now, I guess I should warn you, there might be a bag missing. Shannon, look, I got a clothespin on there. I'm eating your chips. No, you know I wouldn't do that. These are my chips. You are still getting a full case. I just thought I'd scare you for a second. They're so good though, I'm tempted, so we better get them in the mail right away. I just need to get your address, and you're gonna be sharing Benitos with the whole family. You're gonna love them. So I want you guys to stick around because I'm gonna be giving away more of those over the next few weeks. You just gotta watch to win. Now, you hear me talk about Dr. Sean Jackson at Health resource, Chiropractic and Rehab. He's here in Houston, 290 and the Beltway, and he is the best. He does the cupping technique. A lot of people don't do that, and I'm telling you, it is great. I am speaking from firsthand experience, and he's got a fabulous massage therapist, all kinds of specials. If you're anywhere near the Houston area, you have got to go see Dr. Shawn Jackson, because the body takes its toll. I thought, I need to go after all that storehouse work that I did, and he is the best, and his rates are just unbelievable, and he will have a free consultation with you. There are not a lot of doctors that you can go see that will diagnose you and tell you, do you need to come see him or do you need to go see somebody else? And he's got the weight loss program and a program for cellulite, and he's fabulous. So go see Dr. Shawn Jackson. It's spelled S-H-A-W-N, Jackson, at Health Source Chiropractic and Rehab. Okay, now we're going to get Miss Cabaniss on the phone because I do not want to delay. She is so fabulous. Let's get her on the phone now. Hello, Catherine. Are you there?
Good evening. How are you?
I am just delighted that you took time out of your busy day to come and share all of your information.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Well, I tell you, it's amazing that, you know, I deal with a lot of widows every single day of my life. And I was widowed 6 years ago, and one of my first conscious thoughts that I remember having was, I don't feel safe anymore. And this is something that is across the board. And I know that you guys at Crime Stoppers, is it correct that your mission is to help prevent and solve crimes?
That is exactly right. Our mission is to reduce and prevent crime, and we do that in partnership with citizens and the media and the criminal justice system. So it really is all about preventing crime and promoting public safety, making sure that we're all living in a safe community and feeling just as safe as possible.
Okay, that's excellent. And you're certainly the gal for the job. You've got just an unbelievable resume and worked in the district attorney's office. And just tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, you know, that's exactly right. I worked at the district attorney's office for 11 years. I was a prosecutor, and so I worked in the courtroom, directly prosecuting cases as a lawyer, making sure that justice occurred in every single case, whether that meant prison or probation or dismissal. Just making sure that the right thing happened in the courtroom. 5 years ago, I went to Crime Stoppers, which is a nonprofit organization, and now it's just making sure that justice occurs in a little bit different, from a little bit different angle or perspective.
Well, I see your name constantly on the news. You do so much public speaking, and you know, I'm gonna, as a matter of fact, put up your website.
Yes, www.crime-stoppers.org.
Okay, let me put that up right now so that if anybody, it's crime-stoppers.org.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, I'm putting that up on the screen right now. So if people want to donate and find out more about the organization, they can look you up on your website.
That's right, we would love that.
Okay, all right, now I've got so many things to cover. What types of crimes are typically associated with women?
Well, you know, it's really, anyone can be victimized, and I think that women have to be especially careful because they're perceived as being vulnerable. That may not be true. You know, it may absolutely not be true that women are any more vulnerable than any other citizen that's walking around. But because they're perceived that way, you have to be especially careful of your surroundings. You have to be especially vigilant.
Yes, and I think that's the key right there. And I think that's one thing that especially women who are widowed or divorced or who find themselves suddenly single have to really think about, because I've talked to widows who were really elderly, and even if their husband was 95 and not doing that well physically, somehow the wife still feels a sense of safety just by virtue of the fact that there's a man in the house.
That's exactly right. There is somehow some perception or some feeling that's different when there's someone there as opposed to when there's not. So you have to just be aware of that. It doesn't mean that there's really any difference, but you do have to be aware of that and just take those extra steps that you can do to help yourself feel more comfortable and feel more safe.
Yes, I
Really,
talked to a lady once, and her father had passed away, and his widow was like 85 years old. And my friend, who I was speaking to, said she went to her mom's house and she was helping her do some cleaning. And when she took the pillow off the bed, she found like a gigantic butcher knife.
oh gosh,
And it hit me then. Who knows whether this woman would actually be able to defend herself, but it let me know right then that she had that same feeling. It's up to me to be able to take care of myself, and I have to have some sort of weapon or something that makes me feel more comfortable.
yes, and I think that that's such an indication of where the woman, how she was feeling. That's just such a sign of really the vulnerability that she was feeling. What we would like to do is try to take some steps before that point to try to make our home safer, our community safer, so that we don't feel like we have to have that butcher knife under the pillow. If we know that our front door is fortified and that no one can get through, then there's a lot more comfort zone in that.
Absolutely. Well, what do we need to do? When you say to fortify your front door, what does that entail?
The way that we describe it, and this is for any homeowners in any residence, in any situation, whether you're in an apartment, a townhouse, a freestanding home, the way that we describe it is you want to create the illusion of occupancy. You want to make it look like there is someone home at your house all the time. Because what we know is that a burglar, if they're going to try to steal something, they want to go somewhere that nobody's home. They want to go to a place where no one is home and they can get in and steal as much as they can and then leave. They want it to be easy and unsecured. And so if we can create the illusion that our house is occupied, the illusion of occupancy, then a burglar will go to another location. They don't want to find someone home. So that means keeping lights on, keeping doors locked, having your neighbor pick up your newspapers if you're out of town, making sure that if someone leaves a door hanger on your front door that either you remove it or that your neighbor does if you're not there, making sure that it always looks like someone is home, that there aren't papers accumulating in the yard, there aren't bushes overgrown or lights out, that make it look like the house isn't occupied.
So people should have a timer for their lights to come on at various intervals.
I really recommend that. I think that timers on lights are an outstanding and very inexpensive way to make your house look occupied and keep your house safe, keep you safe. I think that motion detectors are wonderful. If you have outside floodlights, it's very inexpensive to install a motion detector on that light so that if someone crosses your driveway or crosses your backyard or steps onto your porch, that light will go on. That alone can deter a burglar from wanting to come to your house.
Well, and you know, another thing, it seems like unlocked windows are a big problem. And of course, you understand that if your air conditioner goes out or if it's a pleasant evening, which we're not having that here in Texas, but I remember when we used to have pleasant evenings, and you want to keep your
We'll
window
get it
open.
at some point, I hope.
Yeah, it's just crazy. But so, what do you tell people that bottom line, you really just should keep your windows closed and locked as a safety feature?
Absolutely. When your windows are closed, keep them locked. If you're going to keep your windows open, don't do it when you're not home. If you're going to leave your house, don't leave your windows open. Certainly there are times when we're at home when we want to open our windows and enjoy the weather once it changes. You're going to open your windows at some point. We don't do it as often here in Houston as they do in other jurisdictions. But there's no reason not to open your windows when you're home. The key is, when you close them again, lock them. Don't leave any windows unlocked. Don't leave any doors unlocked. And don't forget about the door in between your garage and your house. Many people leave that door unlocked. So if
Yes.
someone gets in your garage, they can get in your house.
Yes, that's a really good point, to keep the door locked that opens up to your garage.
That's right. Any door that's on the perimeter of your house, even the one that's in between your garage and your house, should be locked.
Are there any statistics regarding crimes being committed more frequently during the day or during the evening?
So one of the trends that we're seeing recently, unfortunately, is that crimes are being committed in the daytime. Burglaries especially, what we're finding is that a recent trend is that houses are not being broken into in the nighttime when someone's on vacation and the neighbors are asleep. We have seen a trend recently where it's in broad daylight when someone just runs to the grocery store or, um, you know, just general times in between 10 and 2 when houses are being broken into. So you really can't say anymore that there's any time of day that is more or less inclined to be crime time.
So crimes are just committed around the clock. So the key is to be safe all the time. Don't have a false sense of security just because it's daylight.
That's exactly right. Remember that the criminal is the one who chooses when the crime is going to take place. So it can be any time, and you just have to protect yourself all the time.
Okay. Now I have heard a lot about cars being broken into. What's the issue there?
Well, cars being broken into, that is one of the most common crimes in our jurisdiction. Unfortunately, we had 35,000 car burglaries last year just within the city limits. And those are just the ones that were reported. So people's cars being broken into and property that's inside being stolen is very, very common in our community. What we have to do is recognize that burglaries of cars, car thefts, and burglaries of the property in your car,
Okay.
it is 100% preventable. You can prevent burglary of a motor vehicle.
Okay, so we should put stuff in our trunks in order to keep people from looking in to see stuff, which would encourage a break-in.
That's exactly right. You can prevent car burglaries by just simply not leaving anything in the passenger compartment of your car. If there's nothing in that car to steal, then the burglar will go somewhere else. So don't leave anything in the passenger compartment of your car.
Now, I've heard that a lot, and just the other day I went into a store and I had like a 3-ring binder, and I think I may have had a bag of Benitos. Is something like that, is that an encouragement, or do they look in and go, oh, it's just a folder?
What I always say is that the person who's thinking about stealing something doesn't know that it's not really something valuable. And so they will go ahead and break the windows just to find out. I had a friend who left a purse in the car, and she said, oh, well, it's empty. You know, it didn't have anything in it. She had switched out her purses and left one in the car. And I said, well, they don't know that. You know, they see a purse and they don't know that it's empty. So the key is not to leave anything of any value inside the passenger compartment of the car. Even change in the center console.
Wow.
Someone who steals for a living will break your window just to steal some change.
Oh my gosh, I never even thought about that.
It may not have much value to you. It may have some value, but it may not have much value to you. It might be very valuable to a person who would break your window to steal something. So don't leave anything of any value in the car, and you won't be victimized in that way.
And what do you say to people who have like a convertible? Are those vehicles more commonly broken into because you can just slice the top?
Well, you know, I don't know the statistics on that, but I think that people who drive convertibles probably are more sensitive to it than those of us who don't, because they recognize that cars are so vulnerable and they don't leave anything in there that could be seen or taken. They perceive it as being easier to steal from a convertible car. Maybe we should all think that way, and then we won't leave things in our car. Just put things in the trunk. If you've got anything of value and you're going to be parking your car somewhere, just put it in the trunk, lock it up, so that it can't be seen by someone who might want to steal.
Well, I went to my gym not too long ago and I noticed that they had a security guard out there, and I hadn't really noticed that before. And he said that people were bashing the windows and pressing the button to open up the trunk in hopes that you would have something in there.
Well, that is true. That is absolutely true. You know, the best plan is not to have anything of value in your car, you know, not to leave anything behind in your car. If you must do it, then be sure that you leave it locked in the trunk.
Yes, I'm looking at the chat room now, and all the people are saying the same thing. There are several widows who are talking and saying that they're really paranoid about their houses and about their cars. And Amanda is saying that her cousin's bike was stolen in broad daylight, even something like a bicycle.
Yeah.
So bottom line, try your best not to leave anything in your car, and if you do leave anything, leave it in the trunk.
That's right. That's the good rule of thumb.
Okay, now, since I've been widowed, I've had so many crazy things happen, and the more I talk to women, I'm hearing the same thing. I had an obscene phone caller, and it was in maybe the first or second year of my widowhood, as I was starting to feel a little bit more comfortable that everything was okay, and it was on my cell phone, and that really, really bothered me because I felt like it was someone that had to know me, and the call would come in restricted, And when the first call came in, I heard this sounded like mumbling, and then I had heard a couple of choice words that were not the kind of words that anybody I know would say to me. And it
Mhm.
scared me so badly. And people kept saying, just don't answer the call. But I had a friend, she has now passed away. She was dying and had so many illnesses, and she called restricted because she worked in the media. And I just felt like I'm not going to allow someone to keep me from using my phone, because I'll never forgive myself if my
Right.
friend reaches out to me and I'm not there. What do you say about obscene phone callers? Because I know I'm not the only one that's had that.
Well, there is a crime for obscene phone callers. It's called telephone harassment. And so there is a criminal offense that can be charged if someone is harassing you or someone by telephone. The key in that case, if you find that you're being victimized in that way, is to report it to law enforcement. It may not be that they can make an arrest immediately. It may not be that they can identify who it is immediately, but you've documented it. You've documented what happened, and you've started the process of reporting the telephone harassment. When it rises to the level that it's really bothering you, that it's becoming an imposition, such as what it sounds like happened to you, the police will be ready to go with the information that they need to be able to file the charges.
So, do you recommend calling them the first time you have a phone call like that?
Do I recommend what? I'm so
Do
sorry.
you recommend calling law enforcement the first time you have an obscene phone call?
Well, I think you have to use your best judgment. I don't know about the first time. I think it depends on what is said, and it depends on it depends on what happens on the call. I think you have to use your judgment. But certainly, if you find that either one phone call was alarming enough that you need to report it to law enforcement, or that there are multiple phone calls and it's becoming a harassing situation that really needs to be documented, I think in either of those cases that law enforcement needs to be alerted. There just needs to be a police report made. It may not be that there's any action that anybody can take yet, but you've documented it and brought it to the attention of the police.
Well, so I think you're saying follow your instincts, and if you feel frightened by it, just make that phone call and report it.
That's right. There's never any harm in just making the phone call. I think following your instincts is exactly right. And yes, if you feel frightened, there is no reason not to call the police and just document it. The police certainly, that is their professional responsibility. That's what they do. They handle situations like that for those of us who are in that situation. So, I think that's exactly right. There is no downside in reporting it to the police. So if your instincts are such that you're frightened, then yes, calling the police is the right thing.
Okay. In my case, and my friend who passed away suggested that I answer the phone and sound like a man and say Harris County Sheriff's Department, because that's who would come if I had called law enforcement. So I would go to sleep every night thinking, tune that in and try it. And would you believe the next time the phone rang, I went, Harris County Sheriff's Department, and would you believe the caller never called back?
I think that's outstanding. That's a great helpful hint. How wonderful that works.
Yes, because I've
It's a
heard of
great
people.
technique.
I've heard people say blow a whistle or make some offensive noise or whatever, but somehow that just didn't seem to feel right to me. So when
Mm-hmm.
my friend made the suggestion that she did, I thought, you know what, I'm going to try it, and it worked the first time out of the box. And that was another message that let me know what you were talking about earlier, which is this perception that women are vulnerable, but as soon as a man is involved, as soon as law enforcement is involved, a lot of people fade away.
Well, certainly when law enforcement gets involved, that can help a lot. I think that the threat of law enforcement can often stop a lot of activity that won't otherwise. The threat of law enforcement, that's a pretty big stick to carry.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I know that dating is a big issue for all single women, not just widowed, but it's a big issue. Do you date? Do you not date? If you date, do you date online? If so, what kind of parameters do you need to create so that you feel safe? Can you shed some light on what we should do as we venture out and start dating again?
Absolutely. I think that online dating is clearly the trend now. And Match.com, I think, has some sort of statistic that 3 out of 4, marriages now have met online and things like this. So whether or not that is true, what you have to know is that if you're going to engage in this trend of online matchmaking and meeting people, know that any person that you meet online may not be who they say they are. It is just like inviting a stranger into your home. So take every precaution that you would before you invite that person into your home through your laptop. You've got to make sure that you're being careful, to be very skeptical and very cautious about who you're talking with online.
Okay, and I've heard some people say the first time you meet somebody, it's perfectly fine to take a friend or a relative with you.
That's always a good practice. And always meet in a public place.
Yes, and take your car. That's another big thing that I've heard.
Right. Take your own car, have your own transportation. And remember that even after you meet them, you've just got to be careful. You've got to, again, use your instincts. But even more than that, you've just really got to be skeptical and just check everything out. It's not a bad thing to want to verify someone that you don't know otherwise. Someone who's a total stranger that you haven't met through friends, you haven't met through work. You've met them online in the worldwide online community. So there's no reason not to be cautious and careful.
Okay, and if you go out with somebody, like what if you, like how long, here's what I'm trying to ask. If you have a guy that's not up to good and you go out with him and maybe you take a friend or maybe you take your car, and how long will somebody hang with you if they're not up to good? If you say, you know what, we have the first 5 dates, I'm taking my car and I'm taking a friend, how long will a bad guy hang with you before he says this is not working?
Well, I think what we say is that it depends. It depends on who that person is, and it depends on how they're doing. Con men are looking for ways to do what it is that they have their motive to do, and so they will hang with it as long as they feel like they're being successful. What that means for you and I is that we need to know what the red flags are. You need to recognize red flags that this person is not motivated out of a sense of wanting a relationship or caring about me. This person is motivated by something else, by something that isn't good. One of the biggest red flags is a person that you meet online who purports to want a dating relationship but starts asking you about money. If the person that you meet online is asking you about your financial information, your financial status, any particulars about money, or any stories that they have about needing money, that is a red flag.
What's the appropriate response if you're going out with someone and you're liking him, but he starts to mention that, and you don't really want to kill the date, but you want to stop that and see where it goes? What's an appropriate answer?
I think that's exactly right. I think you stop that, you put a stop to it, and you say that is not going to happen, and then you see what happens. Because a con man, they'll either keep trying, or they'll recognize that you really mean it, and they'll quit, and they'll move on to another victim.
Yes.
There is no reason that anyone who is in a new relationship, who is new to you, that you've met online, should be asking you for money. So
okay.
if you decline and you mean it, the next action that they take will tell you exactly what it is, whether they're a con man who's going to keep trying,
That's great.
or whether they're someone who is legitimately asking but will find their money through some legitimate resource.
Yes, and I shared with you when we spoke on the phone earlier that as a TV producer working on a court show, I had a guy, I don't remember what state he was from, but he was Mr. Con Man Deluxe. And he was not attractive, he was your average Joe. And I want to share the story in case it happens to someone. He was targeting this young woman, she was in her 20s, and he met her in a bar. It was never romantic, they never went out, they just formed a friendship. And he knew her for a solid year, and she said that he was always flashing money. She had no reason to ever think that he had no money. And then after the first year, he said that his checkbook had been stolen, that if he didn't have $2,500 to pay attorney fees, that he was going to wind up going to jail, that he had to get this sorted sorted out. So this young, naive woman who did not have $2,500, she was a college student, she actually went down and took out a loan and gave this money to this guy. And he said that he had been in the military, and he had a document that he produced, and it actually said that he was to receive $45,000 upon discharge from the military, and he said he was just days away from that. So he had told her, if it doesn't come when the payment's due, I'll just pay the payments until it comes. Well, he paid the first payment. The second payment, the girl couldn't find him. So she lived halfway in between two small towns. She put up wanted posters, and of course she had a picture of him from when they had gone out, and women started coming out of the woodwork. And it appeared that he would prey on one woman, he would get money from her, then he would flash that money in front of another woman so it looked like he was financially okay, and he would do that for a while. He would get money from her, and it went on and on and on. And there was one lady that came as a witness for the plaintiff in this case, and she said this man had taken her for $30,000.
I know. I'm not sorry to hear it, but I'm not surprised to hear it, because it's just all too common, these schemes. And it's especially unfortunate because we are all caring people. We are all willing to help someone who is in need.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate to say that you've just got to be very careful and very skeptical of that, because these are schemes that people use to try to defraud us and trick us.
Yes, it's so unbelievable. And the sad part, to realize how mentally off these people are, when the witness for the plaintiff came in, I mean, we're like, all cameras be on the defendant because we want to see his expression, and he made no expression. There was no reaction.
I'm not surprised by that at all. That is just, unfortunately, it is just a common, typical pattern by white-collar criminals, white-collar thieves, and people who use schemes to defraud us of our money. But they are like that. They appear to be very caring people, and the truth is really that they were just caring about stealing.
It's unbelievable to think about that. And you know what the real clincher is? Getting fried on national TV is not a pleasant experience. And the judge was all over this guy. Of course, the plaintiff won her money, and he was saying that she should call the DA's office and so forth. And it was probably 2 months later, I get a call from someone I'd never heard from, and she said, were you the producer on the case that so-and-so was in? And I said, yes. And she says, well, he just targeted another woman, and I think that for the first time, he felt a need to step up his game. He dated her, asked her to marry him, and then took her for the money.
Yeah. I just can't tell you how many times I've heard about that over and over and over again, and it's so sad. I've just heard so many stories just like that, and so it is unfortunate that we have to think in this way, but we've just got to always be careful and always be just very questioning and skeptical, and always look behind. And if you're seeing things that cause your instincts to question, then follow your instincts. If there are red flags that are telling you that something just isn't right, then listen to those little voices.
And the sad thing is just don't give anybody the money. And I'll share another quick story. Oh my gosh, so many things have just happened to me personally. I have one sister, and when we were in our 20s, she became engaged to a man that she had dated for over a year. He always had money. He had a great job at an oil company. He had a great car. He had a townhouse that was fully furnished. He always wore a suit and tie. And at one point, we had a relative that was in trouble financially, and we were just babies. We had no money. And we took out a joint loan together. We put up our grandmother's property as collateral, so it was critical for us to save the land and pay that loan. Well, once we got the money, my sister's fiance said, if you would like to put the money in my Merrill Lynch account, it will draw more interest while you're waiting to write out all of the different things that you're going to be paying for your relative. And we were so young and naive, we didn't even know to ask anything like, well, how much is the interest and how long does it take to make how much money? We just trusted him. So we gave this man the $14,000, and he skipped town. He must have had something going on, because we started calling people at his job and a couple of friends, and some of them were saying, he borrowed $500 from me. Something went wrong. He may have had a gambling addiction. Who knows? But we paid on that loan for, it seemed like 100 years. We would count our pennies together every month and pay on the loan so that we didn't lose the land. And so my big message for everybody is, you've got to be very careful with people who come on really strong and I love you and oh my gosh. And it's kind of sad, because that really does happen with true love. But how can you tell the bad guys from the true lovers?
That's the thing. It can be very difficult, because the con men can be very, very good at their game, at their scheme. So you have to look behind every single thing that you're told. You have to check things out. You have to verify things. And you just have to ask those difficult questions.
Is it good to check out people online in today's world?
I think you can find out things online. Sure, I think that you can. I think you can. You can always, try that method and see if something comes up. I don't know that you can really find out significant information in that way. In other words, if you didn't find anything, I don't think that you would automatically assume that meant, well, all these things that are telling me that something's wrong, then, my instincts must be wrong. I think if you don't find something online, that just means that either there's nothing to find or that you need to look in different places.
Yeah, and it's just sad, because a lot of people, whether you're divorced or widowed or whatever, a lot of people will profess marriage and go so far as to walk down the aisle just to get to your money.
Well, it's really unfortunate. Hopefully people don't take it quite to that extreme. I think what is more common is that you find people that try to prey upon other people through a dating relationship. And they don't really want it to get any farther than that. They want to be able to move from one victim to the next.
Yes, I'm with you.
Be aware.
And speaking of dating, I think about people having drinks and leaving them to go to the bathroom. What do you say to people that are in a place where they serve alcohol, or really any other drink for that matter?
Exactly right. I think that the rule now is never ever leave your drink unattended. If you are at a bar, or if you're at at some place where you're having drinks, don't leave your drink unattended. If you're going to run to the ladies' room and you have a good girlfriend sitting there with you, make sure she watches your drink while you're gone. But don't ever leave your drink unattended, such that someone could slip some sort of drug into your drink.
Wow, okay, that's really great advice. Well, we've got a couple of callers. I'm going to get Kathleen on the phone, and she's going to share an experience that she had and see if you have anything to recommend. Hello, Kathleen. You are on Rob and Craig Live. How are you?
Robin, hi. I'm fine, thank you. I've been listening to the show, and it sounds like some good advice, and I'm hoping that Catherine can help me with my situation.
Okay, see if you can briefly summarize what has happened with you.
Well, I moved into a condominium about 6 months ago, and no one informed me about the man who lived below me, that he had a history of being unstable and becoming fixated on whoever lives in the condo above him, which is, of course, the one I'm living in. And I don't know what is truthfully wrong with him, but he is ill, and from what I'm told, he is on medication. So the severity of it, I don't know. But he hates any noise at all that comes from this apartment. And he will call the police at the drop of a hat, literally. And I have the police knocking on my door. They've been out here probably 7 or 8 times, about every other week, really. They knock on my door with some silly complaint that he has. But that isn't the worst of it. I came home one Sunday and was busy getting my place cleaned up for a friend that was coming over for brunch. And the next thing I know, he's standing at the foot of my stairs. I've never had a conversation with this man at all. Didn't even know what he looked like. And all of a sudden, I hear this screaming and yelling at the foot of my stairs, which is directly below my front door. So I opened my front door. I had my little dog in my hands. Opened the front door, and there he is at the foot of the stairs, screaming and yelling at whoever lives up here. Then he called the police. They know what I'm doing. They're aware that he was just ranting and raving about things that I am trying to do to upset him and to disrupt his life. got hold of the police, who said, I can't help you because he's not physically threatening you. So I feel like I don't have the police until he actually physically threatens me, able to do anything for me. And I'm just wondering what you can advise me to do. I have my dog that I need to do just a little thing. And he's a good little alarm, but he's not any protection really. And I need to take him out for walks in the daytime and in the nighttime. And I just wonder if there's some kind of advice you can give me, maybe what I can do to protect myself when I'm going in and out of my condo.
Did you hear that, Catherine?
I did, and I think that the number one thing, I think there are a couple of things that you can do. Certainly the number one thing, it sounds like the police are involved and that they know who this man is and that they are well aware of this situation. But I think that what I would do is make sure that you are staying in regular contact with the police, and that when he threatens you or when he encounters you or when you feel concerned about the way that he is behaving toward you, then you call the police, that you're the one that's reaching out to the police. I would also ask the police, ask them if the person who lived in the condo before you had these issues, and ask the police if they know anything about the background of this man. Ask them to tell you exactly what it is you're dealing with. It may be that he is nothing more than someone who harasses people and he's a terrible annoyance, that he's not someone who's ever been threatening. It may be that there's something in his background that they need to tell you so that you know. So I think I would talk with the police, and I would make sure that they knew me and that I knew them, and that there was a very direct and open line of communication there. I think that's number one.
Okay, and Catherine, let me ask you this. As she was saying, she walks her dog a lot, and a lot of people say, well, you should take mace and you should make sure you have your cell phone. Do you recommend that, or is there anything else she can do to protect herself if something escalates?
I agree with carrying a cell phone. I think that whenever you are out and about, you should have a cell phone with you if you possibly can. That's your direct 911 call if something does happen. The second thing is, people who recommend mace, I think mace is fine. I think what you have to remember is that you are just as vulnerable as the other person. So if the wind is blowing in a sunny direction, then it can backfire on you. So I'm a believer in carrying your cell phone, using your own eyes and ears to look around you. See someone who's coming before they even know you're there. Know what you're dealing with. Be very, very alert. Be very vigilant. And if you see something, your own voice is your own best defense. Yell as loud as you can. Yell fire. Yell something that will get someone's attention, and then have your cell phone with 911 on speed dial.
I remember actually a television show a long time ago that was talking about women's protection, and they recommended in that situation yelling out 911. Mm-hmm. Most people will just yell help and won't be so terribly alerted. But if you yell out 911, do you think that that's a good idea over something else to yell out?
I think anything is fine. I think anything that gets someone's attention is fine. I think that whether you yell 911 or fire or help or just scream, I think if it gets someone's attention, you've satisfied what you need to do.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. I hope that she answered your questions. That's some great advice. And thank you so much for calling into Rob and Craig Live.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Good luck.
You know, that was a good point. I have heard people in the past say that if you yell help, others around who might want to help you are threatened because they think it's something horrible. What's strange about the human being is if you yell fire, they come running because they want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
Especially now, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't know about different human motivations, but I think that what you want to do is inspire someone to hear you, and whether they come running to help or whether they call 911 for you, it's drawing attention to yourself that something is wrong. That's what you're trying to do.
Okay, excellent. Okay, now I'm going to call Catherine. You girls have the same name, and she is in Phoenix, and she has had an amazing situation. Let's see if we can get her on the phone. Here we go.
Hello?
Hello, Catherine. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. Have you been watching the show?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so you know we've got a lot of good information going, and I just want to see if I can briefly summarize your situation. Catherine is now 27 years old. She's been a widow for 4 years. Her husband died, and she had 2 small children, and she was 6 months pregnant at the same time. It was a very tragic accident. And like all widows, you feel that your bodyguard is gone. That was one of my first feelings as a widow, is I just don't feel safe anymore. And Catherine was sharing with me that she had a stalker. And Catherine, why don't you explain a little bit about the evidence that allowed you to know that you had somebody that was repeatedly coming to your home?
Well, the first time that he tried to break in, he actually left footprints behind, and he left my screen broken, and the police came and they took photographs of it, and he left one of my patio chairs behind my back wall that leads into a vacant house and a vacant lot behind me. And so this went on for 6 weeks. One day I went out to go pick up my kids from school. I was gone maybe 10 minutes. I come home, the gate to my backyard is open, and I had to call 911. And of course, the police came and they drew the gun. That triggered my children's post-traumatic stress disorder because of the tragedy that killed their father. And so it got to the point where the police officers already knew my name every time they came over. And it was a horrible experience. He tried to break into my bedroom window several occasions. And it was a very, very horrible experience for me. And so the final straw, he's trying to break into my bedroom window. I'm calling 911, hiding in my bathroom, crying my eyes out. The police come and they have their weapons drawn, and this guy was never caught, and that was the final straw. And so what I did was I had motion lights installed in my backyard. I had video surveillance installed throughout my house, and I've gone the extra mile of getting a security system installed because I felt so unsafe. It's the most, and it's a horrible feeling. And I grew up in New York City, so I'm very, very streetwise and street smart. And what I realized was I can be street smart all I want, but being house safe and house wise is a totally different subject. Because even in your own home, you're still vulnerable to these things. And it's insane and it's horrible. And when you have children, it's even worse. And so I guess my question is, after installing all these precautions, and I'm wondering, what extra thing can I do? Do I get a weapon? Do I get a big dog? What can I do to further protect myself?
Well, I think that one thing that you've done exactly right are the motion detectors in your yard. I think that having motion lights, where if someone comes on the premises, you're going to know it immediately. I think that's huge. I think that keeping your doors and your windows locked and having an alarm system, making sure that if someone breaches the security of your home, that it is immediately, there's going to be a sound, they're going to know that they're caught, and then that system is monitored by an alarm company so that they will dispatch immediately someone from law enforcement who can possibly catch him in the home. I would get an alarm system when you have an issue like that going on.
Well, and what's so great about her is she got an alarm system, she had motion detector lights installed, and also video surveillance. And she said after all of that, she never had a problem again. Isn't that amazing?
And I think that that's exactly what we want to see. We want to see that where we take these precautions, that it does deter the criminal conduct. They go somewhere else. It's what we were talking about They want to be able to get in and steal something and go away. They don't want to have to spend any more time getting in or out, or any more difficult than it sometimes is. So anything, you've done all the right things in installing those different extra layers of security. Another good thing is to get to know your neighbors. Neighbors are a great way that we can keep an eye on each other. If a neighbor sees someone suspicious on the block, they can call dispatch. If a neighbor sees someone suspicious walking up your driveway, they can make a phone call. Getting to know your neighbors is one of the number one crime prevention, public safety tips that we have.
That's great. Yes, and she was sharing with me earlier that she actually had met her neighbors, and that sometimes if she was afraid, the neighbors would come over and look around. But she's got that special situation because she's got 3 children, and to have a weapon doesn't make her feel very safe.
Right.
And she was thinking about getting like a really big dog. Do you think that would help her feel safer? Would that make a difference?
I think it's up to her. I think that everyone is different. I think if it makes her feel safer, I think there's no reason not to do it. I think that a big dog can often, it's often one of those things that you hear about, that it does create a sense of occupancy around the home, that someone will move on and go to another home.
And you know what's interesting?
Don't want to deal with a dog.
What's so interesting is that she lives in Phoenix in a really safe, low crime area, and I think that's a bit of a misconception that we have. We somehow think it only happens in poorer areas.
Right.
Yeah, I live in a very safe neighborhood, and the only crime that we really have is graffiti, and for that to happen to me was unheard of, and my neighbors never really paid attention to anything because there was nothing to pay attention to beforehand. And only after the fact that I had police over my house a number of times and going the extra length of getting my security system and my video surveillance, then my neighbors actually say, you know what, you really got to keep an eye out. Because again, I'm all alone, I'm widowed, and I have 3 small kids to worry about. And so my neighbors actually went the extra step and said, hey, we're going to keep an eye out. If we see anything suspicious, we'll let you know beforehand so you know these things.
Yes, I think that's absolutely fabulous. And that brings up another point. I've heard people say this, Catherine Cabanis. I don't know if it's correct or not. Does it make a difference if you just put like the world's largest dog bowl outside? Or
I love that idea, and I think absolutely it could make a difference. If again, it's creating the illusion that there's a big dog in that house, and that, if you're thinking about doing something bad, you better not do it here. I think it's a great little subtle technique that you could use in addition to many, many other things. It's that extra layer, that extra little thing that might help.
even things like putting up a sign, beware of dog, is that good?
Absolutely. Putting up a sign, beware of dog. You always hear about people who put up the signs about the home alarms. This house is monitored by such and such alarm company, even if it's not. Those subtle sort of deterrent signage can really make a big difference.
And if you do have a security system, leave it on, right?
That's right. Leave it on. It is no good if it is not armed.
I know. I think one of the smartest things that insurance companies have done is to allow you to have a reduced rate if you have a system, but the catch is they won't pay an insurance claim unless the alarm is on. So I think sometimes people leave their alarm on just because they don't want to get into trouble with the insurance company and have a claim that's not paid, when it really should be for your safety.
Yeah. Well, I think that the rule is use the alarm system that you have, even when you're home. When you're home and you're inside, it's a good thing if someone breaches the perimeter of your home, you'll know it immediately.
Yes, that's great. The other thing, Catherine, in Phoenix that you mentioned is you're concerned about how do you identify someone if they knock on your door and they're dressed in a uniform and they say they're with the city, or that's her baby in the background. Oh.
It's okay. She looks at that her movie is ending. It's okay.
Oh, bless her heart. But anyway, Catherine Cabanis, how can you identify somebody with the city or maybe a police officer if they come to your house and they say they need to look around or there's a problem? How can you tell the difference?
Always ask for identification, even if they're in uniform. If they're in uniform, they should still have an identification issued by the company. If it's the utility company, the light company, or the water company, they should still have a picture ID which identifies them.
Okay. Okay. Well, Catherine, bless your heart. I'm going to let you go so you can attend to the babies. It's okay.
Thank you for all your information, and I'm glad I was able to share my story, and hopefully someone out there can take note of what happened to me and to learn something from my experience.
Absolutely, honey. We all have, and we thank you so much for tuning in, and you have a great evening. All right.
Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you. The baby's movie was ending. Bless her heart. Well, I tell you, there's just so much that we need to think about and so much that we need to be aware of. But Catherine, I tell you, you're absolutely wonderful and you're just a wealth of information. And I appreciate so much of what you're doing. Tell everybody what the national number is for Crime Stoppers.
The local number is 713-222-TIPS. That's 713-222-8477. If you're outside the Houston area and outside the 713 area code, then you dial 866-222-TIPS.
Okay, that's excellent, and we should all memorize that. It's beautiful. I'm putting that up on the screen as well. Because wherever you are, just remember the prefix for toll-free, 866-222-TIPS, TIPS, and dial that number because these guys are helping solve crimes all the time. And I love it, Catherine. We mentioned this on the phone and you didn't quite remember the case, and I know you've got trillions because we live in the third largest city in America, but I had seen on the news where a widow's house was burglarized and the robber had taken the urn with her husband's ashes. And she was so upset, she got on the news and she made an appeal, and they said, if you have any tips, call Crime Stoppers. And the next thing you know, I heard that the urn was sitting on this woman's porch. I guess the bad guy saw it, and either you guys scared them at Crime Stoppers or they felt guilty, but they returned them.
Sure, whatever works, whatever we can do to solve the case, we're happy to solve it however it gets solved.
Well, you guys have got it going on. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing such valuable information. I know you've made a big difference for me, and I know you have for the viewers, and I hope that you'll come back and share some more with us at another time.
I would love to, and thank you so much for highlighting all of this on your show. It really is so important to spread these tips, and thank you very much for helping us keep everybody safe.
Thank you so much, Catherine. You have a great evening.
You too.
All right, bye-bye. Oh my goodness, this hour has passed way quickly, but I know that you guys got a lot out of it as I did.